Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Julia. All right. So first of all, I'd like to join everyone in acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nations and all their elders, past and present, and may they carry unerringly across time the language, music, and law. So, and second, I'd just like to apologise that I'm there through Zoom rather than in the room. I really wish I could have come up, but at least I'm very honoured to be participating in this way. And I would like to use this talk both to show some things about what PARADISEC does and how it can be used, but also to pay tribute to Linda and her vision and leadership over the years, and also to relate her work as a musicologist to the goals and achievements of PARADISEC. So the title, Keeping Time, is deliberately ambiguous. You can try and work out yourself how many senses I will give to as the talk unfolds. So this is Keeping Time 1. I'd just like to give this little snapshot of Linda as a musicologist. I love music, but I'm not trained as a musicologist, and working with Aboriginal people who had wanted to teach me songs, I was always being stumped. I just couldn't get my head around how to do it. And my first chance to work with Linda in the field was part of a Volkswagen Stiftung supported project on Iwaja and other languages of the Croker community. And here Linda is on Croker Island at Minjalang in 2003. I think we took this shot working. You can see on her right Archie Brown, and on her left Cookie Minjamak there. And then one of the things that we did was to look at musical vocabulary, where we have clapsticks, and one of the terms that came up, because we were simultaneously documenting the language and the music, was this Iwaja term, Purulalku Arilil, which refers to a half beat of clapsticks. Now, if I were to clap that in English, I would just clap that out as, right? So note, 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 rest, note, 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 rest, like that. But the way it's generated in Iwaja music is to have two people, each with a clapstick, and one is going, and the other one is going like that. So when you cross those together, you get the same beat as the English version, but the texture is different, because the first beat is a beat where you hear the sound of two clapsticks, and they're never quite perfectly in synchrony. So that's the sort of thing that you don't necessarily understand if you just put a word in a dictionary, but documenting the language is revealing something about the music and vice versa. Now, we've already heard from Nick and Linda about the founding of PARADISEC, and now I'd just like to change the prosody a little bit and say that PARADISEC came in at keeping time. It's a time when we became aware of the need to keep things that were mouldering away in offices, including right here in the Coombs building where I'm sitting now. And at the foundation of PARADISEC, I think it's very typical of the style both of Linda and of Nick, not just to get good advice, but to know who to ask for the good advice. So they are always out there listening, as musicologists and linguists should. And here they are with Heidi Smith, just getting advice about it. Now, actually what got set up is very much their vision of things, but I think it really drew on a lot of other institutions, including, in this case, ILA, which is the Archive for the Indigenous Languages of the Americas. And part of this keeping time is the crescendo that we're seeing. Nick mentioned that, you know, the sound of the orchestra is already swelling still swelling as we speak. That is the number of files, the number of languages. It continues to grow. It's quite astonishing. And of course, I didn't put something up for the number of megabytes or ask, you know, when are we going to reach the petabyte or anything like that. But it's just an incredible thing. And as Nick said, achieving that sort of continuity in a research landscape like Australia, which has these very short-term 3-year cycles, is something which has required a view of how to maintain a longer-term vision through these sort of shorter-term opportunities that have come up. And the team of Nick and Linda have been incredibly in doing that. So now I'd like to look at a different sense of keeping time. And I'd like to jump away from the Pacific for a second, because there's a magnificent book by an anthropologist, Piers Vitebsky, about the Sora people in India. They are a people who are ultimately related to speakers of Vietnamese and Cambodian and Aslian peoples of the Malay Peninsula, although their language is typologically very different. And in this book, it's an ethnography, he describes this unique dialogue between the living and the dead conducted through a shaman. And the theme of the conference is hearing the ancestors, but the argument I want to advance today is that more than simply hearing them, we want to enter into dialogue with them in the ways that I'm going to talk about, adding our own voices to the archive. And many people who are here present today have done that in different ways. So I'm going to use 2 examples from fieldwork in Northern Australia, which Linda has been a part of, and which brought great joy and understanding to me to be participating in. So the first is the Mystery of Munban. And Munban is one of the many song styles of Western Arnhem Land. So this is a map originally produced by Linda and others, showing the languages in Western Arnhem Land. They're the big words in capitals, and like Iwaja and Ilgar and Margu and so on. And there at the bottom, under each language, you will see in italics a number of song styles. So in Iwaja, there's Jutberg, for example. Ilgar and Garag, there's Milyaryar and Mirikbu. And Margu, there's that word I mentioned, Munban and Welep. So when we were doing this Iwaja project, in sort of, Linda was asking, you know, what other types of song are there? And these names, Munban and Welep and Milyaryar, came up. And then for each one, she was recording a number of songs in that genre. Often there would be dozens of songs of that type. Some of them were in something close to normal language. For example, in Iwaja, the Jutberg songs are very much in that style. But others would be said to be in spirit language. People would just say, well, that's not an ordinary word, it's a spirit language word. And in red, I've put 2 of those, Milyaryar, which is in the Garag, Ilgar and Margu, from speakers of those languages, and Munban from Margu speakers. And we recorded some Munban songs from some members of the Yarmir family at that time. But they couldn't give any translations or much information about the song. With some of the Milyaryar songs, unfortunately, the late Charlie Waraga had died around the time we started the project, and all of his songs were just closed down at that time. We couldn't record them, but people mentioned that they existed. And then note down the bottom, these mixed ones, Bongalin Bongalin, which is another song type I'll talk about a bit later on. So with those Munban songs, we knew they were there, they were archived, and they were a sort of mystery. And then in 2013, in connection with something completely different, that is a film called Language Matters, made by David Grubin and Bob Holman and others, I was up on Goulburn Island, so was Reuben Brown, one of Linda's amazing students, and we started talking to and recording Johnny Namaiwa, who is a man who basically speaks Maong, which is from the same language family, but it's not too distantly related. He doesn't speak Margu at all, but he's been a songman for a long time. And towards the end of Charlie Waraga's life, that's Charlie at the bottom left, he's passed away long enough ago that it's okay to show his image now. Charlie was a Namangalara clan man. He owned the whole Milyariara set. He was the one entitled to sing them, but Johnny would sometimes sing with him in that way that there's a lead singer and a second singer playing clapsticks with them. So a few people got those songs from Charlie, including his son, Goyo, but Johnny knew them, and when Charlie Waraga was getting close to the end of his life, he passed his clapsticks over to Johnny Namaiwa as a way of saying, well, you know, you've got the right to continue playing these. So there we were in 2013, and Johnny sang one of these songs. I won't play it all to you, but I just want to play you a little bit to give you an idea what it sounds like. And you can see the transcription that Reuben and I did. Okay, I won't play the whole song, and it's a tragedy to cut it off, but I don't have time to listen to it all. But that gives you an idea of what it was like musically. And then we sat down with Johnny. Reuben and I were trying to sing it, and it's a certain sort of transcription because you can't just say the words. People don't do that. You've got to sing the words and try and get them right. And once we got down to that, the amazing thing was that Johnny, who does not speak Margu, you know, I would say that sounds like Ngarda or whatever. And he said, yeah, that's right. You know, and we got them. Then there's a list of words here on this slide, like Ngarda, that means I or me in Margu. And Ngiro is probably reduced from Nginiru, which means another. And Mangurchi, which you might have heard there, means I came or I arrived. Gunni is an occasional reduction from Mukuni there in Margu. Miragunya Marpa jumps across to another language, Ilgar, and it probably means the other ones went or something. And Yaguni is something like not. So then the translation for the whole song, which Johnny offered, because he'd been told by Charlie what the song means, was I'm from Baganalinia, but it's probably more like something like, I have come from another place. They've gone somewhere else. No, I have come. I am a Munban. Now, we didn't know what Munban meant when we first recorded that song set, but Johnny said, yeah, well, what Munbans are they're little song-giving sprites, like sort of musical leprechauns that live in the mangroves, and that's what that's the person giving voice to the song, the Munban. So now we don't just have a song as a sound recording, but we have a transcription and an interpretation and a contextualization of what's going on. So that's what I mean when I talk about dialogues with the archive. The archive gives, and the people who listen to the archive give back. And that's something that PARADISEC enables. So now I want to briefly talk about another amazing musical tradition from another part of Arnhem Land, called Bongaling Bongaling. These are songs associated with gunbot, which is a public dance song genre. And most of the Bongaling Bongaling songs were composed around the 1960s by a man called Jolly Laiwanga. And the main didgeridoo or mako, is the word in Dalabon for didgeridoo player, was David Blanasy, who many people know. He was a famous didgeridoo player, and they actually toured with Rolf Harris, for better or worse, and were received by Queen Elizabeth in London. And they're extremely popular, and their genre has given rise to lots of new bongaling type songs in many parts of the world over to the Daly River. So once again, following this theme of passing from archive to enrichment, the recordings were made by a number of people. There was a sort of, including this Rolf Harris disc with some of it on. And then Alan Marrett, who's here today, made recordings in 1986 in Barunga. But then Jolly died in the 1990s. So it was, the chance to work with him was past. There wasn't a lot of information of transcription. Alan had done quite a lot in 1986, but there was still a lot of unclear things, and not much in the way of recordings in Dalabon or Maili, the two languages of the song, about the circumstances of their creation. And some songs were in Maili, some in Dalabon, some in spirit language. So with Linda, Alan, and Murray Gard, and myself, we were involved in a project sponsored by the Endangered Languages Documentation Program at SOAS in London. Now, one of the Bongaling Bongaling songs it's a very popular song called Wadbukara, and the Wadbukara is in the special spirit language of this particular song. It means a mimi. Mimis are these very slender, mischievous spirits who dwell in the Arnhem Land escarpment. And most of the words in this song are not normal words, but people will give you interpretations. So Gamarwala is supposed to be the Mimi language song for what in Maili or Biringunwak is called Kalobne. It runs, in this sense, into a cave. Just have a little listen, and you will hear the amazing quality of Jolly's voice. It makes me think of sort of a Bulgarian women's choir with a sort of bagpipe-like releases and bleatings. I'll leave it there just so that we can go on with time, but you get a feeling for what it sounds like. Now, we also were able to record that song from Jolly's younger brother, Jimmy Weeson, who used to sing with him. Now, this was recorded in 2007 at, Bamili there, and should be Beswick, I think. Here you'll hear a very different pace and voice quality and other aspects, but the essence of the song is the same. that gives you an idea of the song. Now, there were other songs which we recorded from Jimmy Weeson, which were said to be Bonglin Bonglin songs and didn't match exactly any of the ones that Jolly recorded. So we can actually expand out a set, including some very beautiful ones, but I won't have time to show those now. But what I'd like to show is how we also got a lot of fascinating context about the songs. So lots of Australian music is simply inherited in the sense that it belongs to a particular clan and is passed on inside the clan like that. But from what we can tell, in Jolly's case, he was like a singer without a song. That is, he didn't have music that was there for him from his clan. And he had to resort to a very special method to receive the songs. And we recorded a couple of people talking about what had happened there. This one is from Jimmy Weeson as part of a much longer story, but I'll just play this for you quickly to get an idea. And knowing that people can read faster than they can listen, you'll read ahead on the screen, and I'm not going to play it right through, but you'll see that the key thing is that Jolly, upon hearing that a woman from the North Arafura coast had died near Barunga, he thought, well, the spirits will come and sing to her. That's how the spirits get the spirit of a newly dead person to join them. And he would go and lie down next to her grave and sort of listen in on what the spirits were going to be singing, sort of eavesdropping on this call. So he did that, and the music was so complex that he couldn't get it the first night. So he had to go back to the graveyard second night and listen in again. Now, there's interesting musicological questions about similarities of this music to music that's actually on the North Coast around Arafura, both in some of the musical figures and some of the words, and also about how far this sort of gets you off the hook if someone accuses you of ripping off their song. You know, you say, well, no, I didn't copy your song, I was there. I did the hard yards of lying down in the graveyard and listening to the spirits. So there's lots of interesting questions about sort of anthropology of property. I won't go into those now, but to discuss them, we have to get back to that primary data of how music is transmitted and learned and created.
Kalbong, we got nang yulu jernga. Yulu jernga got nang ngale ngayong anjara. Kun borok ngamian gen kain. Kayo kayuring muta kainin kuno. Wait ngarin 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock ngarin. Kan kuno kanang graveyard kanang ganija. Ngale jarang ngayong yan guys. Ngadulu mian gun kunbor.
Okay, so I'll stop it there. The point is to show that taking back songs, earlier recorded Bonglin songs, and then having people both perform themselves and comment on those songs and recollect all the talk that goes around, gives enormous enrichment to our understanding of what's in the archive. So this brings us to my final slide, and this final sense of keeping time, that is that an archive like PARADISEC allows us to keep time in a special way and to have what we might call dialogic repatriation. So coming back to the musical side, a feature of most musical traditions is the return to the start. You'll have a theme which you wander away from, and then you come back at the end, restate it, possibly with a little variation. But even if it's exactly the same theme, it doesn't sound the same. You hear it in a different way because of what's been heard before. And repositories aren't just places to store recorded voices of the ancestors. They'll gain in richness from the dialogues their stored voices enter into with the living. And we should remind ourselves that the Latin word repositorium, on which repository is based, it originally meant like a tray or table, small table where you would put food so that you could come back and eat it later. So it's not just about sticking things away forever. It's about bringing them out to nibble on again. So Linda's been a pioneer in this sort of work, and before the internet was so widely available, she was setting up local archives at places like Wade and so on. Been aware of this from the beginning. More recently, Nick Teberg has been pioneering the use of Raspberry Pi as a repatriation device. New things will continue to happen here. And the term digital repatriation gets used a lot, but as I've said, more importantly, it's dialogic repatriation. We get these stories about it, and many of the presentations over these 3 days will give us examples of this in some quite inspiring way. So that raises the general question of how we can design archives in a way that opens them up to these dialogues, especially at a time when we can't necessarily travel out to places, and some of this is going to be done remotely. This is a moment for celebration, but also a moment for thinking forward to the next steps, because I think that PARADISEC should be with us forever and keep developing in new ways. So can we keep time in a way that it will feed us back? Thank you so much.